Learning more about the suspected source of damaging information about EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. One America has determined that person is former senior EPA official Kevin Chmielewski, and now Congress is interested in talking to him. Now we want to send it over to One America's Neil W. McCabe, who is live in Washington. Good morning, Neil. Who is Kevin Chmielewski,
Good morning.
And why is Congress looking to speak to him?
Well, of course, Scott Pruitt has been in the news, and Chmielewski is pretty much the top suspect for who's been giving that information to the media. Chmielewski was the Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations for the EPA. He's currently on administrative leave without pay, but he would have been in that key position to see not just how Pruitt is running the agencies to the outside world, but inside the agency. This is a very difficult agency for any Republican, let alone a conservative Republican. So Chmielewski would have seen how Pruitt is interacting with his aides, and also how, he would have been aware of certain family arrangements and other things that have come out into the media. Lily.
As you mentioned, he's on administrative leave. Chmielewski was removed from his position in the middle of February. So how much of this is a case of possibly a disgruntled employee just lashing out?
Well, Chmielewski did a great job from people I've spoken to as an advance man on the Trump campaign. And then, of course, he was rewarded. First, he was given a job at Homeland Security, but that was a very short stint. And then he landed, of course, this very senior job as a Deputy Chief of Staff of Operations at the EPA. From what I understand, in the middle of February, when the White House was dealing with a bad news cycle about background checks, they put out a zero-tolerance policy, and that forced everybody to look at sort of the uncompleted background checks and to give everybody sort of a second scrub. And that's when a number of problems popped up for Chmielewski. One of my sources told me that they sat him down and they said, "Hey, Kevin, this isn't going to work. We're going to try to find another job for you if you can just sort of sit tight." And apparently that wasn't the right answer for him. And then, of course, almost immediately after he was told he couldn't continue at EPA, the news stories started coming out about Pruitt. When One America News conducted our investigation into who he was and what he was about, we came up with a number of problems that would have really made it so that he's almost impossible that he could work in the administration. Probably the top problem is that on his resume he put that he had served 4 years in the U.S. Coast Guard. The Coast Guard has confirmed to One America News that he spent 10 months in the Coast Guard, not 4 years, and that in fact when he was discharged, it was at a reduction of rate from seaman apprentice to seaman recruit. The Coast Guard has not yet come back to us with the condition of his discharge, but there are some other problems. He has an outstanding judgment to a Chevrolet dealer in Manassas, Virginia for a little over $1,000. There was his drunk driving arrest and conviction in 2013. And then there was this issue during the Trump campaign where he began a relationship, even though he's married with children, he began a dating relationship with Haley Davis, who is a contestant on American Idol. Davis has confirmed this relationship to One America News, and Chmielewski arranged for her to sing the Star-Spangled Banner at different Trump rallies. And this made a number of people very uncomfortable, but it was the kind of thing that nobody really took as serious. And maybe if it was just one ding, it was something that could have been overlooked. But there were a number of problems with Chmielewski. And finally, of course, Pruitt has been in the news because he was renting an apartment from a lobbyist. Chmielewski himself, it turns out, is living with Corey Lewandowski, Trump's former campaign manager. And of course, Lewinsky is not a federal lobbyist, but he is a consultant for foreign and domestic clients who are interacting with the federal government, Lily.
Pretty interesting there, Neil. As you mentioned, possibly that last act there was not the biggest deal, but I mean, lying on your resume, and it was, such an important organization that he was part of there. Well, finally, Neil, is there any word about when and where Chmielewski will be possibly testifying?
One America News has reached out to a number of committees on Capitol Hill, House Oversight, House Natural Resources, House Commerce and Energy, but none of them have said that they're actually speaking to Chmielewski. So it could be that these talks are very informal and not very developed, but as updates come up, Lily, we'll bring them up to you.
I'm sure you will. Thank you for that, Neil W. McCabe, live from Washington, D.C. Thank you again.
We can use your help. Call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call today.